Hello everybody, welcome. Here we share true stories from real people. Today starting out with the first story, it reads, Updated. Sister-in-law banned me from the family photo in the trip I paid for. I left her bills unpaid and she's now broke. Original post. You won't believe I'm writing this whole crap while on vacation in Miami. It sucks. Yeah, so I, 47 male, along with my wife, Rach, 42 female, her parents 76 and 70, and her sister Ella, 38 female, came for a vacation 2 days back. This was supposed to be a fun trip, but Ella is giving me a tough time. She's just ruining it for me and I don't know how to deal with it. You see, Rach and I have been married for 10 years. We're both doing well financially. We both travel a lot. We plan at least 3 nice vacations a year and many short weekend getaways to unwind. We both have demanding jobs with fat paychecks. We don't have any children and we like to live this way. For the last 2 years, we have insured to bring Rach's parents along on at least one of the trips. They're older and her dad has been dealing with some serious health issues. Her mom cannot travel alone with him. For this summer, her dad politely wished he could travel to Miami. They had their honeymoon here and for some reason, he dreads that this may be his last trip, God forbid. So we obliged. He even offered to share some expenses because a week-long trip in Miami, is expensive. But we declined. I assured him that I could cover for them, no issues between Rach and me. I bear the expenses of the trip even though her parents are tagging along. I don't mind bearing their expenses too. I'm earning well and they have been really good to me, so yeah. However, this year, Rach's sister Ella also joined us. She's not financially strong and has 3 school-age kids. Every year, whenever we plan a trip and after we return, she's melancholic because she hasn't been able to afford a trip since her honeymoon. Feels sad, right? This year, she outright asked us if she could join. I agreed, knowing that I would have to pay for it, of course, since she can't afford a vacation in Miami. I didn't mind too much because sometimes we need to step up for family. I made the bookings for everyone, flights and hotels. But from the moment we landed, Ella started acting weird. By weird, I mean she went out of her way to exclude me from everything. At first, I didn't think much of it. We arrived at a beach resort and after settling in, Ella wanted to take a family photo. Seemed innocent enough, right? Wrong. When we were about to pose, she turned to me and said, "Oh, can you take the picture for us? We want just the 4 of us, Mom, Dad, Rach, and me." I was taken aback, but I didn't make a scene. Maybe they just wanted a photo for the original family. I thought it would end there, but it didn't. Ella made this theme for the trip. Every time we stopped somewhere scenic or did something fun, she'd say, "Oh, just the 4 of us," or "This one's just for the family." Guess who was holding the camera? Me. Many times, Rach stood up for me and would say, "He is part of the family too." My in-laws also asked me to join, but Ella left no opportunity to sideline me. The pictures she uploaded on social media barely had me in them. It looked like the 4 of them came for a vacation. It's dang frustrating. I mean, I wasn't included in half of the vacation photos, and instead of making memories, I found myself playing photographer or being the bag holder. Then in the evening, we all decided to spend the afternoon at the hotel's pool. They had this gorgeous infinity pool with a view of the ocean, and I figured it would be a relaxing break from all the walking that we had done. As I was about to join everyone in the water, Ella turned to me and said, "Can you stay out for a bit? We want a girls' photo, just Rach, Mom, and me." I figured fine, no big deal. But after they took that photo, she made sure that I was conveniently busy with something else every time the camera came out. First, it was just the women, then she wanted siblings only, and of course another with just the original family. If she hated my company so much, why did she even come with us? Yesterday, we went sightseeing and on a serene boat ride. It should have been a calm, family-friendly day, but of course Ella found ways to make sure that I was sidelined yet again. Most of the activities at these places were 4-seaters. 2+2 row is usually the case everywhere. There were 5 of us. Ella suggested that Rach's parents should sit together in one row and then she'd sit with Rach in the next. That would make it easier to click family pictures and make memories. That left me alone. Ella turned to me and said, "Oh, you can take the next row, right? It's more balanced this way." They even bought a souvenir photo from the ride with me awkwardly sitting alone with strangers. While I understand that one person has to be out of the frame, why is it always me? She could also switch places sometimes, just sometimes, right? Another night, we went to this fancy seafood restaurant. It was one of those places where you expected to make a reservation days in advance. But I had taken care of all that, ensuring that we had a great table with a perfect view of the sunset. When we got to the restaurant, we were shown to a round table that seated 6 people. Now, everyone who's been in this situation knows that the best seats are the ones facing the view. Naturally, I thought Rachel and I would sit next to each other, with her parents across from us, leaving Ella to sit on one of the sides. But as we were sitting down, Ella quickly slid into the seat next to Rach, and her parents took the 2 seats facing the view, leaving me to sit on the side with no view, squeezed between Rachel's parents and the server station. Rach tried to protest, saying she wanted to sit with me, but Ella snapped at her, saying she should stop being so clingy and it was a family vacation. I bit my tongue. Fine, I thought. It's just a meal, but halfway through dinner, when I tried to join the conversation about some family stories, Ella kept changing the topic back to the things that I wasn't involved in. She talked about childhood memories, high school trips, and inside jokes that naturally I wasn't part of. Rach and even her parents tried to involve me by giving me context behind these stories, but Ella would just disrupt it and make things so forced. By dessert, I was practically a ghost at the table, ignored while they all laughed and reminisced. For today, we booked a spa day. I booked one private suite for Rach and me, one for the in-laws, and another solo room for Ella. However, father-in-law didn't feel well and wanted to spend the day lounging by the beach side. I thought we 4 could go and have fun, but Ella pulled another stunt. She said, probably you should stay here and keep Dad company. It would be nice if just the women did the spa treatments together. I want to spend some time with Mom and, just have a girls' day. I was furious, but trying hard not to blow up. I'd paid for this whole thing, and now I was being told it was a girls-only activity. After this, I wasn't in the mood to join them, so it was better that I stayed and relaxed with my father-in-law. It actually turned out to be good. We shared some good talks, he shared his wisdom, it was fun and soothing. I wanted to share my frustration regarding Ella with him, but I kept it to myself. I didn't want to ruin the vibe. Now, as he was back to his suite to rest, I sat down to write this. There are 3 more days left, and I really cannot bear Ella. I also don't want to let my anger ruin the trip, especially not for my in-laws. How do I handle this situation? Edit to add. Yes, I did convey my concerns to Rach the other night. She understands that I was hurt, but said it could also be possible that Ella wasn't doing it on purpose. I mean, growing up, they barely went on a vacation as a family. Father-in-law was mostly deployed, so maybe Ella wanted to make the most of it as a family. Sometimes I even feel that maybe I'm overreacting or being entitled. Do you guys think it's intrusive of me to feel entitled to get included in everything just because I paid for the trip? I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Now for the updates. Update 1. Thanks for validating it, guys. I know it sometimes doesn't feel right. It's not right. Spoiler, I got my revenge. Hang in there. So by the end of the trip, I had had enough. I was being treated like an outsider during a trip that I had paid for, and I could feel my blood boiling every time Ella pushed me aside. The final straw came on the day before we were supposed to leave. I pulled Rach aside and asked her why she wasn't standing up for me. I told her I felt like I was being treated like a nobody, and she could see how hurt I was. She sighed and said, I know, I see it, but confronting her will just make things worse. We don't want to ruin the trip for my parents, especially with my dad's condition. Can we just let it go for now? I didn't want to create drama either, especially with Rach's dad being so ill, so I let it slide for the moment. But deep down, I was already planning my revenge. I wasn't going to let Ella get away with sidelining me on my own dime. The day we were set to leave, I told Rach to leave for the airport with her parents and I could come with Ella. She gave me a look and said, I know what you're trying to do. I said, sure you know, and now you remain neutral as you have been for the whole trip. She nodded. Then I went to the hotel's front desk to settle the bills. Now, the way the hotel worked was that while the room rent was prepaid, all the extra charges like food, room service, and activities were settled at checkout. I requested the manager to have separate bills for each suite, giving some random excuse for taxation and such. He obliged, Not a big deal for them. I went ahead and paid for everything for my and my in-laws' suite, but for Ella's, I asked the manager to forward the bill to her. By then, Rach and my in-laws had already left for the airport because their vehicle had to be driven slowly. They also needed to arrive early at the airport to be available for wheelchairs and such. The manager then called Ella and asked her to come down to the reception to settle her bills. She immediately rushed down. When the manager handed her the bill, you should have seen the look in her face. She looked at me confused. I stood there with a straight face. She got a little panicked and asked, "You're not covering mine?" I smiled and replied, "I've already paid for my family. You can cover for yourself." She didn't realize how much she had racked up during the trip. Room service, spa treatments, minibar charges, and all the little extras that she had been ordering left her with a hefty bill. She swiped her credit card only to have it declined. Apparently her credit card barely had half of the amount of her bill. She was furious, scrambling to figure out how to pay. She occasionally looked at me with pleading eyes, but I had no pity for her. She got unpleasant looks from the hotel staff and other guests, which was so satisfying. I just sat on the couch and enjoyed the fiasco. I was ready to pay her bills if she came to me and apologized for her behavior, but she was too proud to do that. She voluntarily wanted me to pitch instead. She called her husband, who wasn't thrilled about having to bail her out. The bill was almost his month's salary, if not more. After an awkward back and forth, she finally managed to get the money wired to cover the bill, but she was livid. I wanted to leave her at the hotel to deal with the mess, but since the booking was done from my account, I couldn't leave. I was prepared to face the repercussions. I mean, pay the bill if she wasn't able to. I had already got my revenge by embarrassing her, but she somehow arranged the money and the hotel got us a cab to drop us at the airport. She didn't talk to me after that. To add to her misery, I hadn't done Ella's flight check-in either. So when we arrived at the airport, we were already frazzled and late. On top of that, she had to deal with the hassle of getting her boarding pass sorted. If this was not all, I got myself, my in-laws, and Rach upgraded to business class and left Ella in economy. I left her in the queue and got into priority boarding. When she finally made it onto the flight, we were already seated. She walked past us but didn't talk to any of us. She was seething. The moment we landed, she went straight to her parents and told them everything, trying to paint me as the villain who had abandoned her at the hotel. She made such a fuss about it that it stressed her dad out. She wanted to fight right at the airport, crying, narrating how I humiliated her in front of the hotel staff and guests, that I didn't upgrade her, nor did I web check in for her. I calmly explained my take, that Ella had spent the entire trip excluding me and treating me like an outsider, despite the fact that I had paid for the whole thing. So then why should I cover her expenses when she didn't consider me part of the family? Rach's mom, trying to keep the peace, just shook her head and said, "Ella, enough. We don't want to get involved. We noticed you were cornering him the whole time. We pitched him to include him, but you had your own plans to sideline him. Now deal with it." Ella wasn't done yet. She accused me of using money to control everyone and that I was a horrible person. She looked at Rach and said, "You're partnered with your husband to humiliate your sister, your own blood. You'll see what this man is going to do to you. He's going to sleep with another woman right under your nose, and you won't be able to do anything. You're blindsided by his money, don't you see?" This led to an ugly fight between Rach and Ella. Rach's dad, who had been mostly silent throughout the trip, simply said, "Ella, your brother-in-law has done enough for you. If you can't appreciate it, better keep your mouth shut." A dead silence followed, and he asked me to drop him home ASAP. I assisted him to the car, and then we drove off, leaving Ella at the airport. She was too proud to come with us. She didn't bring her car far along to the airport. She came with me while coming. She might have hailed a taxi back, which would have cost her a fortune. Her place is like 70 to 75 miles from the airport. I dropped my in-laws at their place. They both thanked me for everything. Their gratitude was everything that mattered. My father-in-law hugged me for a longer than usual, and it made my day. We came back home after that. Rach and I were silent on this topic. We both ignored the elephant in the room. The next day, we went back to work and life seemed to get back to normal. But the other day, Rach broke the silence on the topic and said Ella was facing a hard time with her husband over the payment of her bills. He had asked her to pay every penny back to him, as he could not afford to save her pompous butt. She's kind of broke, paying it, and also her credit card bills. Rachel's been supportive of me, but she did say that maybe I took things a bit too far. Still, she admitted that Ella needed to learn a lesson. She had it coming, and I don't regret making her deal with the consequences of her actions. So Reddit, was I the a-hole for leaving her to pay her own bills, or did she deserve it after everything that she put me through? Update 2. Like my feelings, I got a mixed reaction on my last post. Folks saying that I took it too far, basically wanting me to be a simp. No, I'm not that. I know my worth. No, I don't want her to be my slave, but I need some respect. The least I needed was to be included, right? Like I said, I was ready to pay if she came to me and made things right, but she was not ready to acknowledge her mistakes. Anyway, I don't owe an explanation for my actions. I did what I felt was right. Ella has never been close to me. Yes, we met during family gatherings, and she visits Rachel often, but apart from exchanging greetings, there were hardly any conversations between us. Yet I didn't mind funding her trip. It calls for some respect, right? As I mentioned in my last post, her husband wasn't thrilled about bailing her out of that situation. With my utmost modesty, I feel the bill was nearly his monthly income, and no one would be happy to spend their month's salary or paying for his wife's extravagant bill. As expected, she painted me as the villain in front of her husband. Things went so bad that he refused to attend Thanksgiving dinner at my in-laws because I would be present there. Every year, my mother-in-law hosts this dinner, and this year she wanted to make it special because of my father-in-law's deteriorating health. He declined the invite, and when my mother-in-law confronted him, he said he didn't want to share the table with someone who's evil, who humiliates a financially weaker person. Mother-in-law then spilled the beans and told him about Ella's wicked behavior on the trip. She asked him to validate it through the vacation pictures. Anyone that sees that album would understand how I was sidelined. There was barely any group picture where I was included. I shared a decent bond with him, neither too close nor too distant. We met yearly on Thanksgiving and sometimes during holidays. I perceived him to be a nice guy. I've never looked down upon him. This thought didn't even cross my mind. After knowing all these stories from Rach, I was reluctant to attend the dinner, but I still went just for my father-in-law. Ella and her husband skipped the dinner. When father-in-law was around, mother-in-law said that Ella couldn't make it because they were traveling to her husband's parents. I didn't realize it was a lie to keep father-in-law away from the drama. After he went to bed, mother-in-law told the truth. Ella has been fighting with her husband and has become unreasonable. She constantly belittles him for his low income and wants him to take up another job along with his full-time work. He agreed to take it, but on the condition that he would be relieved from the household chores and kids' responsibilities. Ella wasn't happy about it. Her husband had told mother-in-law the entire thing. I was surprised to know that she has been working only 20 hours a week and expecting him to take up extra hours beyond his 40 hours a week. On top of that, she wanted him to do his part of the chores as well. What an entitled witch. Mother-in-law had stood up for Ella's husband and tried to counsel Ella and make her understand the situation, but it looks like Ella has tasted the blood and now she wants a luxurious life. Lastly, mother-in-law had to say to Ella that God forbid if she undergoes a divorce, then she should keep the bad news away from her dad and shouldn't count upon them for any assistance whatsoever. After we came back from dinner, Rach and I discussed that probably it was a bad idea to take Ella along with us for the trip. Let me quote one saying I read in one of the banquets of the 5-star resort. Once you experience the luxury of a private island, you'd never set foot on a public island. The same is true for flying in business class. I feel bad for her husband. The poor guy is suffering. I hope Ella comes to her senses before it's too late. Wanted to share this piece of update, thinking it might be helpful for someone. That's all for today. If you're enjoying this story, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you.